Hey everybody, welcome to Lauren.live, the spirituality, health, and lifestyle podcast. I had Devani Freeman with me today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining. You're in Colorado right now.
I am.
Yes. So Devani is a woman of many wonders. She's a spiritual goddess. I love when she calls herself that, and I've called herself that. She's a beautiful person inside and out. I've known her for a long time. We actually go way back in our Seattle socialite days, kind of before we both had spiritual awakenings. So we've kept in contact online, social media, and we both changed a lot, I think, for the better. But humbly speaking, we've been through a lot, and what a cool time to reconnect because you've got so many cool things that you're working on. Devani has been in the Facebook and online, or correct me,
Facebook launch strategist.
Yep. Mm-hmm. A lot of digital marketing and different things over the years, social media. She's helped a lot of people, but she's recently dove into a whole new cool area. She's the co-founder of the Liberated Child. Is it?
Yep.
So we're going to talk about that. She'll explain what that is. It has a lot to do with shifting away from the public school system into homeschooling. And there's different models, of course. And there's a lot of spirituality aspects to this too. But would you mind just sharing a little bit about your background, kind of where you came from, how you got into the spiritual world, and then, of course, how you co-founded the Liberated Child?
Yeah. Really good question. And thank you so much for having me here. This is so fun. Okay. So a little bit about my background. Or a little bit about my story, I guess. So I was born into this world as a highly sensitive person. And in grade school, I was 13 years old, moved from the city to the country and had a really horrific bullying experience in school. And at that point on, I was put on antidepressants. I was on antidepressants for 20 years of my life. And this is the story that we're told by doctors that's okay and all of that. And so then I went through my life being numbed at that point, like my intuition, my subtle energy body, all of my gifts of being highly sensitive was numbed out. And I moved through life though, and it was great. It helped me for what I needed at that time. And I ended up doing alternative school and kind of paving my own path with that. And then I ended up going to beauty school. My parents were beauticians when they first met, when they had me. And through that, I realized I didn't want to retire being a hairdresser. I wanted to have much more freedom in my life. So then I got a job in a marketing company. And then through that, I realized I was not cut out for corporate America. And I was like sucking my soul. And then I started my own business, my own social media marketing business. And during that time, it introduced me into the coaching world. And I started learning about online coaching and what that was. I started to work with a coach myself. I did a leadership program and ended up moving from Seattle to San Diego. And in that leadership program, I had a spiritual awakening. And I would say this is probably my second spiritual awakening I had. And this one was of a voice and a knowing coming in that it was time to get off antidepressants. And so that journey is not for the faint of heart because your body becomes so dependent. And I had, 2 decades of not fully, deeply feeling my feelings. And so that led me to somatic energy healing and attachment repair and trauma work. And through that experience, I started to be able to get off of and actually use these incredible intuitive gifts. And my marketing business took off. Like I had my record year in 2020 and 2021. And I really, really give that to the fact of being able to fully feel and to be able to use these superpowers that a lot of us that are highly sensitive aren't used to working with. And then in 2020, I had a vision come into fruition. So I started working with a shaman a couple years before that. And every time I would go into the fields around what's my soul purpose, there would be children surrounding me. And I was like, wow, what is this? Like, okay, I know I'm going to have children in this lifetime, but like, what is this vision? And so I just kind of knew it was there in the awareness. And when I had my birthday on the date in 2020, and a dear friend of mine came with all of her materials and her books in her arms for another sister. This was right when the pandemic started and everyone was having to school at home. And she's like, well, these are all my materials that I use to unschool and consciously homeschool my kids. She was like showing us a self-designed map and like all these systems. And I was like, whoa, like there needs to be a course for this. My friend, Ina, who's a co-founder now in the Liberated Child, is an incredible shamanic healer. And the way that she has raised her children, I've never met children so confident and self-reliant and competent and successful at such a young age and really know who they are. And so ever since that moment, it's been such a wild ride. And I'm a manifesting generator. So I have 2 businesses and always doing several things. And that has kind of led me to where I'm at today. And alongside all of this, I threw out, the business coaches and all of that, although, business coaching is great, but what I really had to focus on was like the inner work, like the soul work, the somatic energy healing to allow me to get to where I'm at today. And so that's a little bit in a nutshell of my journey.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. It's always fascinating just to see what people have been through. And I mean, congratulations on being able to get off the antidepressants. That's a wonderful freedom for you to be able to get off that and feel 100%, right? So that's wonderful. Very cool. I've been following along obviously for years, and I didn't know about the vision that makes sense with the children. Cause I kind of wondered, like, how did you find yourself shift into this, kind of area? And that makes so much sense. So I've heard from friends, I've been noticing there are a lot more people thinking about homeschooling their children. Maybe some people watching this haven't thought a lot about that, don't really understand why that would be a topic of importance right now. Why is this important right now? People have been in public schools, right, for so long. I went to public school. I have my own opinions and I like what you're doing, but for those that may not think about this, why now, and what are some of the holes or things that you see that are missing in the schools, public schools right now?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. I'm excited to riff on this.
Yes.
Okay. So there is a mass exodus in the school system happening right now, which is absolutely phenomenal. And I think that what happened in the pandemic is that kids learning at home, everyone working at home, it opened up our eyes to, wow, does this really need to be the way? Do our kids really need to be in the school 8 hours a day? And then questioning systems and stuff like that. There's just a lot of questioning of everything right now, questioning the narrative, which is incredible. And a narrative that's needed to be questioned for a really long time is our educational system. So our educational system was built in the industrial era. It was actually originally built to create compliant factory workers. So school in itself, the energetics of school is to create compliance. Think about that for a moment. It's actually takes us out of trusting ourselves, that we are not trustable, that we are to trust in outside authority. So that's a foundation of the energetics of what school is built on. So when we're in this day and age right now of all of this energy around autonomy and choice and mandates and all of these things, we're questioning all of that. So during this time, the school system curriculum has been kind of, massaged here and there, but not much. It's actually gotten even more aggressive with testing and with performance, which creates a rigid pattern, which creates not enough, which creates lack of confidence. We're trying to meet these academics, and then these children don't have the right attunement, like from teachers, because there's no possible way. So our children are being we all were put in this model, shoved into a schoolroom with 30 other kids that are the same exact age, which in reality is crazy. Like all kids same age going through the same amount of hormonal stuff versus when we used to live in tribal days, we're learning from elders and grandmas and all sorts of people with all sorts of wisdom. And then you're shoved curriculum on top. You're not able to actually choose and have a child go after what they're actually interested in. Each one of us is born into this lifetime in the soul with a soul purpose, with our own innate curriculum. So when our innate curriculum is not fostered and not given that room to grow, then we just continue to get shoved down and shoved down and shoved down. Then you get to the age where it's actually time to go to college and we're supposed to pick a major. None of us really know what we want to do because we haven't actually found ourselves. So then our parents are spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on college, and we've got this student debt on something that we have really no interest in. We just picked it because we thought we need to pick it because otherwise we're not going to be successful. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing is a joke.
Wow.
And I know I'm a little fired up because I just got off like a call with all these moms that are just like, it's happening. And we're opening our eyes to like, this is actually freaking crazy. Mm-hmm. What we think is what we need to do.
Right.
And some of the most successful humans are actually homeschooled. Mm-hmm. Like colleges seek out homeschooled kids because they are sovereign. They believe in themselves. They think outside the box. They have extreme emotional maturity and communication skills. It's radical and it's amazing. And it's sad that it is radical. But like that is the shift in the thinking. And homeschooling and what we're creating is not taking your schoolwork and doing it at home. There's a new movement that's happening right now that is child-led, interest-based curriculum. What does the child need? No, what do they desire? It's not, we're getting away from need, like getting away from desire, getting into what are they saying? These children that are coming on the planet right now, these new earth children are crystalline children. They hold higher DNA strands. They are extremely wise, and they're coming in with codes and wisdom to help us to carry into higher frequencies on the planet. So a lot of these children are saying no to the school system. They're like, they're actually saying like this, I'm too smart for it. Like, this is dumb. Like, I'm bored, like, or they're having emotional outbursts. Or for me, I had stomach aches every single day before school. I would be sitting with a bowl in my lap, nauseated. And I thank my parents that I had that bullying experience because it got them to take me out of school. So things are shifting quickly and it's really exciting. And there's, hundreds of parents, thousands of parents, millions of parents that are waking up to this, that are figuring out, what does this look like and what's this other way? And so that's part of our mission at the Liberated Child, is giving them that foundation and that framework. But the first thing that starts with is actually the parents unschooling and deschooling their mind. Because the child is already coming in free. They're already coming in liberated, but it's us with our old school, old paradigm way of schooling. And this is also happening with the old paradigm of parenting. We're going into like the movement of respectful parenting and peaceful parenting. And that was never a thing, And so there's a lot of exciting things happening right now.
Wow. Yeah. Conscious parenting, conscious schooling. It's all about being more conscious. And wow, thanks for expanding on that. It is, I mean, again, I'm right there with you, but you know, I was homeschooled. I thought I would always, I mean, not sorry. I went to public schools, which, you know, I mean, I talk about this with like medical stuff too, although I believe more in alternative. And I think there's a lot of like flaws in the system. There's amazing doctors and nurses doing amazing things. Like, let's not get, you know,
yes, and like, there's amazing teachers doing amazing things like, too, I have a lot of hands are tied, a lot of them.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And I have a lot of friends that are in public, you know, education, and bless your hearts, you're doing a wonderful job and doing the best you can do. It's more of a systematic thing where it's older. It's old. It's an old paradigm. It hasn't been changed or shifted. And like everything, we must evolve, right? So it's not meeting the needs anymore. And I just think, I've always thought it was so weird to have like 30 students to one teacher.
Yes.
That's so impersonal. And again, I know that they're doing the best that they can. These schools are so crowded, but there's got to be a better model, right? More intimate, you know, little pods or smaller classrooms with, you know, just things need to change. And so it's fascinating. So, you know, let's be real though, right? Too. We also live in a world where we have to understand like some forms of mathematics and reading. So how would the curriculums look with like the Liberated Child or parents that are doing these homeschooling options? Like, of course, let's do things that the kids are interested in. Let's get out in nature. Let's be more conscious. We could add some spirituality in there. Are there also, you know, ways that basic, you know, life skills are still incorporated, like basic education, right? That just all kids would need to learn.
Yeah. Life skills is like the core skills that a child needs to have. Like, number one question, you know, that a lot of our parents come in with is, if I die today, would my child be okay? So we want children that are not just okay, but flourishing and able to do regular life skills. And with that is reading and math and all those things, which come through life skills, comes through cooking and grocery shopping and doing things. And like, we have to understand, if a child is coming through and they are asking for things, like you feel like they've got, you know, engineer type of codes, like give them that, they'll ask for it. But when it's not pushed upon, the stress is taken off. You know, we just had a mom on one of our calls that was so stressed out that her child's 7 and he's not fully reading yet. Who created those benchmarks? Every child is going to develop at different times and different ages, but it's taking the pressure off and loving them with where they're at. And meeting them with where they're at. And as soon as the pressure is taken off, these children start to read, they start to get interested in doing all that. So yes, it's like understanding, like they need to know these basic things, but also like they can get that through life skills and other things. It doesn't need to be sit down. You need to learn this curriculum out of a textbook.
Yes.
Like learning it through life, learning it through touch, learning it through experience and movement.
Totally. And that's one thing I always think about. Yeah, I think there were a few things in school, like maybe they taught us how to like balance check, which is kind of outdated now, but back in the day that was relevant. But I do think about that. There's so many things, life skills that are not taught in school.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. Like you said, would a kid know how to make themselves a meal or cook or learn about things like that? They don't teach that stuff in school, but that's literally stuff that we as adults do every single day. So it's fascinating. You know, just different things like, you know, this is a stupid example, but like gas and like how that works in the world and the economy and like pricing and like, you know, just little things like that really aren't ever taught in school. So it's fascinating. But I wanted to touch on the testing thing, because that for me was a really hard struggle for me. And I think that it's ridiculous the way that it's measured. I was always a very like artistic child. I did really well. I was very social. I struggled with math and testing, SATs. I think it was ACT. I didn't do well. And, you know, I had a harder time getting into college. I did get into college because I had decent grades and had other things, you know, contributing to getting in. But the testing was a real struggle for me. And I always felt so like, I feel like I'm very intelligent, but I'm being measured on the standard testing. Not everyone is going to like comprehend things the same. So I think that is just a ridiculous measure. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a big, it's not fair.
It's not fair.
It's creating a one size fits all standardized way. And that's not honoring us for our unique ways of how we learn and how we take in, and it's just not fair. So there are times in your life that it is important to be prepared on how to take tests.
Sure.
So that is something that we do, is we come from an unschooling perspective of how to become a ninja at test taking, like how to use your own innate energetic skills to be able to take tests. So like we're skilled on that, but we also don't like encourage any of our families to be testing their kids for anything. But like, let's say they want to become a massage therapist, or they want to do something, like you will have to take tests in your life. So having test taking skills are important.
Yes, I agree. That's a good point. Okay, so then how much of this is spiritual? You know, I hear you say things like souls coming in, and this is we talk about this kind of stuff a lot on the podcast, but I always like to, you know, think there's probably a few people listening that maybe don't know about that stuff. Is a large part of, you know, the program about spirituality, fostering spirituality in this form of education, in this particular child's individual soul purpose, or are you kind of just more focused on the unschooling aspect and introducing freedoms?
Yeah. So we bring in the spirituality for the parents. So Ina is a shamanic healer. I come from an energy healing background as well. So like I have a whole course for those raising highly sensitive, empathic and intuitive children, how to understand their empathic child, how to understand energy awareness, how to work with that within the home and the daily life to be able to support their emotion and their well-being. And then we also do shamanic energy activation and healings, and bring parents through like a guided, it's not a meditation, it's definitely like an activation where you palpably can feel like the energetic field to support the parents in unhooking their mind. We also have one that helps them connect with the soul of their child and their innate wisdom, and then also their North Star as a family. So we do bring that in for the parents, but we don't have any, like we do it through teaching rituals and rhythms. Ina grew up using a great book called Circle Round for her kids. That's all about pagan traditions. And so we provide resources like, here's how you can tap into this. Here's understanding nature school and bringing in, syncing your world with circadian rhythms and rhythms and all that sort of stuff. So we're bringing in like the nature, more indigenous type of learnings and teachings. But we believe that it's really important not to press any spiritual beliefs on your children, to like really allow them to come to their own beliefs. So while you shouldn't hide yourself, it's not like, hey, here's believe in this, that sort of thing. So the river banks that we create in the program, which are for the parents, the program's really for the parents to help them to create more balance and ease as they step into this and have this like amazing, whole field container of resources. The spirituality piece is for them. It's everything is with that unschooling approach.
Right. And I mean, I can only imagine as I get ready in the next, few years with my daughter who will be ready for school. Like you said, it's kind of emotional in a way, like everything else that's going on in my awakening, at least, like letting go of old paradigms. And there's moments of like confusion and like, is this right? And like, what's going on? But I also don't feel right doing it the old way. So, I mean, I think that's so lovely that, it's such a support system for the parents.
Yeah.
Because we're the ones making the decision how we're going to school our children, right? So I love that you have the support for them. And I think I've been looking into like Vedic astrology readings for myself, but also I did one on my daughter, and helping me learn her individual, like, struggles that she might be going through or will be going through, her beautiful gifts that she'll be giving the world, because each one of us is so individual. And I think that's when you said, like, this isn't a one size fits all thing. School is, but like it shouldn't be. Public school is, but it really shouldn't be, because everyone is so different and we all have different needs. And yes, we can learn some of the same things, how to count money and things to, we are human, we're in a human world, but each one of us does have different sensitivities and different gifts. And what a cool concept to like foster those things. It seems sad that has to be this revelation, but gosh, it really is necessary.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Yep.
So what can you, for people that are coming up, like me in a few years, people that are in it right now, or people that already have kids in public school that are just wondering, like, that just doesn't feel right to me. What are some like words of wisdom or encouragement? What are some things that they can do? Obviously they will, at the end, we'll give, the resources on how to find more information out, but just like, what are some first steps or things to look at, and do you have any tips?
Yeah. So the first thing is like really tuning in to, if it's not feeling right, to start validating that, to start questioning that. If it's also the child like saying they don't want to do this is, I don't want to go, or, I'm bored, like becoming curious. So becoming curious in all of that, becoming curious, and then start to do some investigation. I definitely would, you could start that on YouTube. You could check out what we're doing and just start kind of down the rabbit hole, so to say, with that. Because, a lot of parents, they think of homeschooling, they think it's just taking schoolwork and bringing it at home. And it's not the case. It's actually going back to our roots of how we used to be educated way back in the tribal days, where life was educated, our education. I did a really powerful summit last year, and I interviewed a really beautiful Indigenous man from a Native American culture or tribe in Alaska. His name's Ilarian. And at 4 years old, he would get woken up at 4 a.m. to, hike a mile down to the river, where he would sit there for hours and hours and hours to fish, to hunt, to bring food. And in that, he learned different levels of awareness of the mind. He learned how to track and how to read subtle energies, and how to actually feel into everything. And this is the same mind that we can get into when we've done a lot of meditation work, or a lot of energy awareness work, or we've done a lot of plant medicine. We're able to access these different states of the mind. And through that experience, like, he was able then to be tapped into so much wisdom, and to be able to become a successful leader and elder that he is today. And so, and he would learn from all sorts of people in the tribe. And it feels like there is a circling back, like there's a circling back that we're getting to, of like, how do we merge these old wisdom, this ancient wisdom, with our current world? Because now we have amazing technology, which a lot of technology is being extremely abused because the lack of boundaries and the addictions that are present, lack of connection and this false connection with that. And so it's like, how do we merge that back in? And I think that's what's happening right now with this new paradigm that's being birthed, is bringing that ancient wisdom with this new technology piece, and bringing that together to really support our children. So No. So I guess like circling back, I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but circling back is like child-led education is like the forefront of our future. And so I would Google like interest-based education, child-led, Google things like unschooling. People think of unschooling as like, oh, my child doesn't learn anything and they're radically unschooled and they're just off on their own. And like there is people that do radical unschooling, but that's not what we teach. Like you want to be the parent that's applying the riverbanks and the support and all of that sort of stuff, but yet from an unschooling approach.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
No, it does. And I'm glad you went down the rabbit hole. That's what we do. I like to do on this show, but that's what's so cool about, that's why I'm excited to talk to you about. I haven't really had a guest talk about education and school, and I haven't talked a lot about children, and parenting. So this is perfect, but it's just a theme. I think a lot of people are noticing it. I'm noticing it clear as day. We have to go back to more what our ancestors did, because what we're doing now is really not working. And some will stay. Yeah. Technology, there's a lot of cool things too happening right now, but it's tricky how to merge some of the older ways with this life that we're living now. And as we can see how quickly things can change, how quickly the world can shut down, how quickly the supply chains are affected. We're actually more fragile than we think. Sometimes I think we think we're just these powerful corporate America. It's always going to be okay, but we're very fragile. And this is why you have to have an understanding, and not all of us can do it, but have a lot more friends growing their own food, moving off the grid. I'm not saying that's right for everybody, but all these old systems, the world banking system, now we see crypto coming in and digital currencies, things are changing in every facet. Why wouldn't education be part of that, right? So I think there's growing pains, there's conflict, there's a lot of division. That's understandable because it's uncomfortable, but it's so appropriate to have these conversations, start thinking about it. Just because we did it one way doesn't mean our children can do it a different way. And I love the idea of connecting back to our ancestors and our roots and getting outside more. Think about how much we were inside as children in school. That is just not healthy.
Yeah.
Being outside, exploring nature, meditating, learning how to breathe, basic principles. My goodness, mental health is a crisis in the world. Why are we not learning how to express ourselves? And, a small chapter in health class isn't going to cut it. Self-coping skills. These are things that you could be teaching your children in your homeschooling or the homeschooling pods or whatever. There's so much benefit and so much that's left out of school. And again, I know teachers and schools do as best as they can, but what an opportunity we have right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wild. It's a lot to think about, but it's really important. So I'm glad that you're leading the way. And
and I just want to share, like, there is an urgency right now. We have never had this amount of suicide in children on our planet before. Our children are literally like saying, like, I can't do this anymore like this. We just went through a massive pandemic and trauma for the nervous system. And to go back in school, out of school, back in school, out of school, mask, no mask, vaccine, no vaccine, like so much on the nervous system. Stress. And then to go back is like, everything's normal, back to normal. And wait, what's your grades? Oh, you're not at this level yet. Like, is the exact opposite of what we need to be focused on. We need to be focused on nervous system regulation, emotional health, connection, cuddles, love. Like, children will learn on their own. They will learn when they're ready. They'll learn when we regulate our nervous systems first, and then we allow them to get excited and curious and motivated and inspired. And then when they get inspired about something, they're like, wait, how do I get this? And Mom, can you give me with this, or get me on YouTube? I want to do this. Like, they'll go, they'll just go. And so it comes down to trusting ourselves. And that's the biggest work, because these new children are already coming to trust themselves. So like, the sooner you can start with this, the better. Like, when we have parents that come in that have, children that are past 12 years old, there's just a lot more unschooling and deschooling process. There's a lot more to get through. So when parents always ask, like, what's the time to start this and learn about this? Like, before you even have the baby.
Or like I have a 17-month-old, and I'm even seeing it now. It's interesting. She's not walking yet. She's 17 months, which if you were to look at this range, it's considered on the late range, which, okay. Yeah. But we had our first occupational therapy appointment yesterday, and she's like, I'm not so focused on when. It's just, I'm checking out to see, like, does she have her core muscles? And she does, and she's great, and she's crawling wonderfully, and her cognitive is fabulous, right? And so she's just happy getting around how she gets around, and she'll do it when she's going to do it, and I know it, and I'm not worried about it, right? But there's just these measures and this, like, pressure, right? Yes. Every kid is different, and it's not fair to just, like, slam them all into one bucket. And so that, obviously with education, that's so true. And you're so right. So I think I'm starting to think about it now, and she's clearly years away from school. I'm sure by then there'll be a lot of advancements and changes. Can you chat about just, like, some of the stuff that you've seen, as far as some people are just having their children at school with them, called homeschooling, but doing it in a different fashion? Are there, like, hybrid pods where there's, like, a parent or an older retired teacher, or a teacher that leaves a school and has, like, 10 kids in, like, somebody's house, or, like, what kind of hybrid models are you seeing?
Yeah. So we're seeing anywhere from pods that are ran by families. So, like, one family takes all the children one day a week, and then you have 5 families. You got, your child doing that each day of the week, which is really cool. Or we've got another family where they hired a Waldorf teacher to themselves, and all of the group of parents go in on supporting that. There's so many teachers that have stepped out because of all of the mandates and things that they don't believe in. So they're looking for work. Yeah. And if you can find one that you can just say, hey, start to educate yourself on self-directed learning, start to educate yourself on unschooling, that sort of stuff. That's amazing. And then, or you could have, tag team it with you and your husband or yourself. Like, really, a child only needs about 2 to 3 hours a day of actual learning time. The rest of the time, they should be free. They should be playing. They should be in nature. They should be running around. So then if you can, you can bring in a mother's helper that's like 11, 13-year-old that just, like, loves to work with kids. Like, there's so many ways. Also, depending on what their finances are, we have families all over, like, dire need that are like, but I know that this is what I have to do. I will make it work. To others that are more financially set, and they can have a private teacher and support come in. So everything, like, so much coolness is happening. Right. And there's a lot of different types of programs popping up too. And we've got one in the works that will be more hands-on, kind of like New Earth curriculum, sort of social emotional learning and that sort of stuff. But for right now, we just have the, like, here's the program for the transformation in the family, the unschooling, all the information and rhythms and home environment and life skills and all this kind of stuff. But then to go deeper into the curriculum is our next phase.
So, like, right now you're in more of, like, the support, like, transitional phase. You're there, but you're looking into actually creating curriculums for teachers or parents to use.
That'll be part of the next phase in, like, the social hub that we're creating.
That's cool.
And we have families that come to us that have been homeschooling for a while, but they've been doing something, like Charlotte Mason or other, like, programs, or very Christian. Like, it's hard to find homeschooling programs that aren't Christian. They want something that is just more, like, soul led. That's more like trusting the child. That's away from this, like, just old paradigm. And that's where we are, because there's no one else in the homeschooling niche that's doing what we're doing in the way that we're doing it.
And it'd be interesting. I know this is also could be hard to answer because it's not quite there yet. This is the new generation of kids doing this. And so they haven't gotten to college, if they're gonna even go to college, and that could completely change too, by the way. But I think maybe some people listening might be like, well, sounds all great, but like, how am my kid going to get into college? So I wonder if there's way, like they would have to figure out a way to like get their GED or like take the SATs to get into colleges. I know that's down the line, but you know what I mean? Like, I guess, would there be...
Yeah. So homeschooling and self-directed learning has been around for a long time. It just hasn't become as popular as it has now.
Right.
So, my business partner, her kids always had a choice on whether they wanted to do homeschool or go to school. And when college came, they decided or high school came, they decided they wanted to go to high school. They wanted to try it out. So when a child is motivated and wanting to do something, then she's like, okay, great, go and research what you need in order to do that. And so they researched and like, okay, we need to do and learn this, and then we need to take this test, and they did it. And they then now, like I said, colleges seek out homeschooled kids because they're more wise, they're more emotionally mature, and they're just like more secure in who they are, and so they're more successful. And you just have to research what it is. Each state is going to have different requirements of things you have to supply, and take it with a really light heart, like, because you don't need to get crazy about it. And there's also other things like families that do charter school, and like 1 to 2 days a week, they do a charter school. Charter schools sometimes even pay the families, which is really great. So there's so many different options. For me, in high school, I did alternative school, and then I did Running Start, which is where the high school paid for college. I got to choose some really fun college classes. I graduated like a year and a half early because I just played the system. And then when I wanted to learn how to become an entrepreneur, I learned online and I hired a mentor.
There's ways to do it that aren't just the, like, you go to high school, you go to college, you get a job.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, if I wanted to become a doctor or I wanted to become an engineer, then I would go to school specifically for that. But it's creating the foundation to let the child really know what they want to learn about. Like really be connected to like, what is that? Like, imagine a world where we have like more than half the population knowing what their purpose is.
Very cool.
And loving what they're doing in the world. Because right now we have maybe about 5% of that, if not less.
Yeah, think about it. Like a lot of my friends or myself, like what I went to I studied fashion, and I worked in the industry for a few years, but I look at what I'm doing now. I have a podcast, and I worked in tech. It had nothing to do with what I studied. Doesn't mean that wasn't valuable. I learned some cool things in college, but there's so many of us that our degrees don't match with our careers, which again, you could still say you learned something. So yes, it's a benefit, but the point is just this like idea that you just do this and you're going to do this. It's not really how it works these days. You actually kind of get into the job world and then you start trying things. You're like, well, I like this, and you're all over. So it doesn't really matter what you study necessarily. Yes, if you're going to be a doctor, you need to know basic anatomy and go through the schooling, but in the general world, business world. And so I love it. I love just that I think the best aspect, the summary that I can kind of come up with is just there's more freedom and there's opportunity. And like you said, if you want to go into high school later, go try it out. You want to go do this, you can go take a test and try to get into that. But there's just more opportunity and freedom. How could that hurt you? It can only benefit you, really. Yeah.
And we got some families with everything that happened over these last 2 years, packed up all their things, jumped in an RV and road school. And they're learning so much. Their family has never been happier. And like, imagine the amount of world experience, worldview, life skills. Traveling. Like, I wish I would have had an experience like that when I was younger.
I think that's, and I remember being pulled out of school and missing days at school, especially when you're younger. It's like, it doesn't matter, man. Like, I learned so much on those trips. You learn about other cultures. That is so valuable. Yeah, I agree. Wow, so cool. Well, how exciting. I love that you're doing this. Thank you for doing this and spreading the word and supporting parents and children. Is there anything else on your heart? I mean, definitely want to highlight where people can find you and anything else that you want to add in?
Just like I have so much love for this new generation of children coming, and just also want to take a moment to like honor you and you bringing your baby through, and the way that you're consciously thinking about all of these things, and just want to honor everyone that's a parent. You're holding a lot right now. There was so much that all the parents had to go through. Oh, your world was completely turned upside down over the last 2 years. And like our nervous systems are still trying to find that stability in that ground, and to really love and be compassionate with yourself. And if there's one thing I can leave them with, is to say, like, trust your child, trust yourself. Yeah.
There's such beautiful little souls coming in right now. I mean, I can just feel it with her. My daughter's definitely, I've had a few readings, and, they're just like, oh man, she's here to help heal. And I mean, they're going to be our greatest teachers. I just can't wait to see what these kids are going to do. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you online, both personally and then obviously the Liberated Child?
Yeah. So at Devani Freeman, so DeVaniFreeman, Devani Freeman, on Instagram, Facebook. My website's devanifreeman.com. And then they can find us over the Liberated Child. If they go to Liberated Child on Instagram, that links to we've got a free Facebook group with over 3,000 conscious parents in there, links to any trainings and resources and that sort of stuff.
Very cool. Well, we'll include that in the show notes so people can find you easily. So I can't wait to see what you guys do. I'm so excited. I mean, I'm personally going to be using you guys as a resource, and you guys have a video, like an introduction, or what did you call it earlier?
We just did an immersion. Last Saturday. Yeah. Okay. 3-hour live event, which is amazing. And we've got other trainings that are up and available.
Because that's maybe a good place for people that are curious to just watch that first, right?
Yeah, to watch that. If it's usually only available for a limited time when we do open enrollment, but you can always message me about that. Okay. And then I have the Conscious Homeschooling Unschooling Summit bundle. Okay. It's also available through our Instagram. That's 22 different interviews all around these topics that every parent that watches that is like, thank you. I'm so activated. Wow. I've so got a better idea of what all of this is. So that's great too. Okay. So lots of resources.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll be checking those out.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you for being here, Devani, and for all your work that you're doing. I really back at you. Just I hold so much love for the work that you're doing, and your co-founder, and there's just a lot going on, and we have to have so much love and compassion to work together right now. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Well, thanks for being on the show, and thank you everybody for listening. I hope you are just thinking about new things, and your thoughts are provoked, because I know I am. There's just so much going on, but a lot of exciting, amazing work happening. So blessings to you all. And you can check Instagram at RealLaurenLive, or my website, Lauren.live, to find more information about the podcast. Cheers.